There's a rest area somewhere along Interstate 90 that I refuse to stop at anymore. Not because it's dangerous, not because I was robbed there, and not because I saw anything I can prove was supernatural. The reason is much simpler. One night I stopped there, and the next morning I found a photograph of myself that had been taken while I was asleep. The strangest part, I was alone. At least, I thought I was. This happened in October of 2023. I was 29 at the time and working as a regional sales representative for a company based in Spokane. My job involved a lot of driving. Sometimes I'd spend 6 or 7 hours on the highway in a single day, visiting stores and warehouses in smaller towns. I'd gotten used to driving alone at night. I actually preferred it. There was less traffic, fewer phone calls, and I could listen to podcasts without anyone interrupting me. The night this happened, I'd been visiting clients in eastern Washington. I was heading home toward Seattle. It was around 11:40 p.m. when I realized I was exhausted. Not falling asleep at the wheel exhausted, but close enough that I didn't want to take the chance. I checked my phone. Battery was at 18%. I had about 2 hours left before reaching home. I decided to find a rest area. My GPS showed one approximately 12 miles ahead. I remember seeing the blue highway sign almost immediately afterward. Rest area, 1 mile. I slowed down and took the exit. There was no other traffic. The road leading to the rest area was surrounded by tall pine trees, no streetlights, no buildings. Just a narrow strip of pavement disappearing into the darkness. I remember thinking how strangely quiet it was, even for a rest area. Usually there are trucks, cars, people walking around. Instead, nothing. I pulled into the parking lot. There were maybe 20 spaces. Only 3 were occupied. A pickup truck near the far end, a white sedan beside the restrooms, and a large delivery van parked beneath a tree. I parked near the building. The lights were on. That made me feel better. I grabbed my phone and wallet and walked inside. The building smelled strongly of disinfectant. The main room contained vending machines, several benches, and a drinking fountain. There was a bulletin board covered with faded notices. Most of them were so old that the paper had turned yellow. I looked around. Nobody was there. I used the restroom. When I came back out, someone was sitting on one of the benches. I hadn't heard them enter. It was a man, maybe 50 years old, gray jacket, dark baseball cap, work boots. He was staring at the vending machines. I walked past him. He looked up. "You heading west?" I stopped. "Yeah," he nodded. "Don't stop here again." I thought he was joking. I smiled. "Why?" He looked toward the entrance, then back at me. I just wouldn't. I laughed awkwardly. "Good to know." He didn't smile. Instead, he asked, "What time is it?" I checked my phone. 11:53, almost midnight. The man's expression changed slightly. Not fear exactly, more like disappointment. "You should go." I remember finding the conversation strange, but I didn't want to make anything of it. I thanked him and walked back outside. When I reached my car, I looked through the windshield. The pickup truck was gone. I hadn't heard it leave. The white sedan was still there. So was the delivery van. I got into my car and locked the doors. Before starting the engine, I looked toward the building. The man was standing behind the glass doors, watching me. I started the car and left. At least, I tried to. My GPS suddenly lost signal. The screen displayed, "Ard calculating," then, "No route available." I thought that was strange, but I had driven through areas with bad reception before. I continued along the access road. After about 30 seconds, I realized something was wrong. The road seemed longer than before. I passed the same yellow warning sign twice, then a third time. I slowed down. I looked in my rearview mirror. The rest area was still visible behind me. The lights seemed farther away, then closer, then farther again. I pulled over. My phone showed no service. I restarted it. Nothing. Then I noticed another vehicle behind me, the white sedan. It was parked approximately 20 yards away. I hadn't seen it leave the rest area. The headlights were off. The driver wasn't visible. I waited. Nothing happened. After maybe 30 seconds, the sedan's headlights turned on. I started driving. So did the sedan. I accelerated. It followed. I turned onto another road. It followed. I made another turn, still behind me. Eventually, I reached the interstate again. The moment I merged onto the highway, the sedan disappeared. No headlights, no vehicle, nothing. I drove home. I didn't tell anyone about it, mostly because I knew how ridiculous it sounded. The next morning, I noticed something strange. There was a photograph on my phone. I didn't remember taking it. The image showed me sitting inside my car at the rest area. It had clearly been taken from outside the driver's side window. I was looking down at my phone. The timestamp was 11:57 p.m. I zoomed in. The reflection in the car window showed the person holding the phone. It was the man from the bench, standing less than 2 feet from my window. I stared at the image for several minutes. Then I checked my phone's photo information. There was no camera movement data, no location information, nothing. I deleted the photograph. I told myself someone had probably taken it as a joke. Maybe the man had walked past my car. Maybe he'd been some kind of employee. Maybe the image wasn't even from that night. I eventually forgot about it. Until 3 weeks later, I was driving the same route. It was around midnight again, and I saw the sign. Rest area, 1 mile. I slowed down. Then something made me look at my GPS. The rest area wasn't listed. I pulled up the map. Nothing. No building, no parking lot, no rest stop. I kept driving. The exit appeared again. I passed it. The road beside me disappeared into the trees, and there was something standing beneath the sign. The man. Same gray jacket, same baseball cap. Standing completely still. I didn't stop. I kept driving. When I reached the next town, I searched for the rest area online. I found nothing. So the following morning, I called the state's highway information office. I gave them the approximate location. The woman on the phone checked the road system. There isn't a rest area there, she said. I laughed nervously. I'm pretty sure there is. She checked again. No, the nearest one is about 40 miles away. I asked her about an older facility, maybe one that had been closed. She paused, then said, there was one. My stomach tightened. How long ago? Several years. What happened to it? She didn't know. She transferred me to another department. The second person gave me an answer. The rest area had been permanently closed in 2009. There had been a structural problem with the building. The access road was removed. The facility was demolished. I thanked him and hung up. I didn't mention the photograph. I didn't mention the man. I didn't mention the sedan, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. A week later, I searched old newspaper archives. Eventually, I found an article from 2008. It was about a series of complaints from drivers using the rest area. People had reported someone photographing vehicles at night. One article mentioned a missing woman. She had stopped at the rest area while driving home. Her car was found the next morning. She wasn't. Another article mentioned a maintenance worker who disappeared, and another described a truck driver who claimed someone had been standing beside his vehicle while he slept. The story included one photograph. It was grainy, black and white, a man standing outside a parked vehicle. Gray jacket, dark baseball cap. I stared at it for a long time. Then I noticed something. The man's face was visible. It was the same man I'd seen. At least, it looked exactly like him. The article was published in 2008. The man should have been nearly 70, but he looked exactly the same. I never went back. I also changed the route I use for work. For several months, nothing happened. Then, in February of this year, I received a text message from an unknown number. There was no message, just a photograph. I opened it. My stomach dropped. It was another photograph of me. This time, I was asleep. The picture showed my bedroom, taken from the doorway. The timestamp read 11:53 p.m., the same time the man had first asked me what time it was. I checked the metadata. The image had been created 3 minutes before I received it, but the room was clearly mine. My bed, my curtains, my lamp, everything. I called the number. It didn't exist. I contacted the police. They couldn't determine where the image came from. I changed my locks, installed cameras. Nothing happened. Until last month, I was cleaning old files on my computer when I found something I'd forgotten about. The original photograph from the rest area. I had deleted it from my phone, but it had automatically backed up. I opened it again. This time I zoomed in further. The man was standing beside my car, but he wasn't holding a phone. His hands were hanging at his sides, which meant someone else had taken the photograph. I looked at the reflection in the car window. Behind the man, there was another figure, standing in the darkness near the trees. I couldn't make out a face, but I could see one thing clearly. It was holding a camera, and it was pointed directly at me. I haven't driven that highway at night since, but there's one thing I still can't explain. Every few months, my phone receives a photograph from an unknown source, always at 11:57 p.m., always from somewhere I have been before, a gas station, a hotel, a parking garage, once my own backyard. I delete them every time. I've stopped trying to find out who's taking them, because last week I received one that was different. It showed the inside of my bedroom. The photograph had been taken from directly beside my bed, and in the corner of the image, just barely visible in the darkness, was the gray jacket, and the man was smiling. I wasn't alone when I read it. My girlfriend was sitting across from me. She looked at the photograph, then looked toward our bedroom, and quietly asked me, "Who is standing behind you?" I didn't turn around. I still haven't. I still remember the man because of the jacket. It was bright blue, the kind of blue you could see clearly even under bad fluorescent lighting. I only spoke to him for about 5 minutes. He didn't threaten me. He didn't touch me. He didn't even say anything particularly frightening. But 3 days later, when I found out what had happened to him, I stopped sleeping properly, and what bothers me most is that I can't explain one thing. When I met him, he already knew my name. This happened in November of 2021. I was 26 and living in Idaho at the time. My younger sister had moved to Portland for college, and I drove out to visit her every few months. The drive wasn't particularly difficult, about 6 hours, mostly interstate. The problem was that I usually worked late on Fridays, so I wouldn't leave until after dinner. That meant most of the drive happened at night. On this particular Friday, I left around 9:30 p.m. The weather was terrible, cold rain, heavy wind, visibility wasn't great, especially through the mountain sections. Around 1:15 a.m., I realized I needed to stop. I'd been driving for almost 4 hours. My fuel was low, I was tired, and I wanted coffee. About 10 minutes later, I saw a sign for a rest area. I took the exit. The parking lot was almost completely empty. There were 2 semi-trucks parked near the far end, a dark SUV near the entrance, and 1 sedan parked beside the building. I pulled into a space beneath a light. The rain was coming down hard enough that I ran inside. The building was small, bathrooms on one side, vending machines on the other, a few tables in the center. There was nobody at the front desk, no attendant, no security guard. I bought a coffee from the vending machine and sat down. That's when I noticed the man in the blue jacket. He was sitting at the table closest to the window. He looked around 40, short brown hair, jeans, work boots, bright blue rain jacket. He was staring outside, not at the parking lot, at the road beyond it. I assumed he was waiting for someone. A few minutes passed. Then he looked at me. "You're heading west?" I nodded. "Yeah." He smiled slightly. "Portland?" I stared at him. "How'd you know?" He shrugged. "You've got the look." I laughed. "What does that mean?" He didn't answer. Instead, he looked at my coffee. "Don't drink that." I looked at the cup. "Why?" He smiled. "Machine's been broken all night." I immediately looked toward the vending machine. The screen was working normally. I took another sip. It tasted fine. The man stood up. "You should leave before the rain gets worse." I looked outside. "I've got another couple hours." He shook his head. "Not tonight." Something about the way he said it bothered me. Not threatening, just certain. He picked up his backpack. Before walking away, he said, "Don't use the bathroom on the left." I laughed. "Why?" He looked at me. For a second, he didn't seem like he was joking. Then he said, "Just don't." He walked outside. I watched him cross the parking lot toward the dark SUV. He opened the passenger door, got inside, and the SUV drove away. I sat there for another 10 minutes. Then I realized I actually needed to use the bathroom. And, naturally, I used the one on the left. The bathroom was empty. 3 stalls, 2 sinks, a hand dryer, nothing unusual. I washed my hands. Then I heard something, a faint tapping, 3 taps. From inside the wall, I stopped. Tap, tap, Tap. I waited. Nothing. I assumed it was a pipe. Then it happened again. Tap, tap, tap. I left. When I returned to the main room, the man's table was empty. So was the parking space where the SUV had been. I checked my phone. 1:47 a.m. I decided to leave. Outside, the rain had become heavier. I got into my car. As I started the engine, I noticed a person standing near the road. Blue jacket. The man. He was facing away from me. I watched him for a few seconds. Then he turned his head, not his body, just his head, and looked directly at my car. I felt uncomfortable. I locked the doors, then drove away. I didn't think much about him afterward, until I reached Portland. My sister was awake when I arrived. We talked for a while. Then I told her about the strange man. She laughed. "You always meet weird people on road trips." I agreed. The next morning we went for breakfast. That's when she asked me something strange. "Did you stop at the Blue Creek rest area?" I nearly dropped my fork. "Yeah." She looked confused. "Why?" "I've heard about that place." "What about it?" She hesitated. "Nothing." I stared at her. "Tell me." She pulled out her phone, then searched something. A local news article appeared. The headline was from 2019, LUSOL man missing after stopping at Blue Creek rest area. I read the article. A 39-year-old man named Daniel Harper had disappeared while driving home from Portland. His vehicle was found parked at the rest area. The driver's door was unlocked. His phone was inside. His wallet was inside. His keys were inside. But he was gone. Search teams had searched the surrounding forest. Nothing was found. The article included a photograph, a man standing beside a vehicle. Blue jacket, same face, same jacket, same person. I stared at the screen. My sister noticed my expression. "What?" I showed her. She immediately looked uncomfortable. "That's him." I couldn't speak. The article said Daniel had disappeared on November 12, 2019, exactly 2 years before I met him. I laughed nervously. "Could be someone who looks like him." My sister nodded. "Maybe." Neither of us believed it. That afternoon I searched for more information. There were several articles about Daniel. Apparently he'd been traveling alone. His last phone activity occurred at 1:42 a.m. His car was discovered shortly after 2 a.m. One detail stood out. The article mentioned that Daniel had spoken to another driver shortly before disappearing. A witness described him as wearing a blue jacket. I stopped reading. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the man, especially what he'd said. "Don't use the bathroom on the left." The following morning, I decided to drive back. I wanted to see the rest area in daylight. Maybe there was an explanation. I arrived around noon. Everything looked ordinary. I parked, walked inside. The same vending machines, the same tables, the same bathrooms, but something was different. There was a maintenance worker cleaning the floor. I approached him. "Can I ask you something?" He nodded. "Do you remember a guy named Daniel Harper?" The man's expression changed immediately. He stopped cleaning. "Why?" "I read about him." The worker stared at me, then looked toward the bathroom hallway. "Don't talk about him here." That made my stomach tighten. "Why?" He lowered his voice. "Because people keep asking." "Who?" "People who say they saw him." I stared at him. "What do you mean?" The worker shook his head, then walked away. I followed. "How many people?" He didn't answer. I caught up with him near the bathrooms. "Please." He stopped, then quietly said, "5. I felt a chill. 5 people saw him over the last few years. "And what did he do?" The worker looked at me. "Usually the same thing." "What?" "He tells them not to use the bathroom on the left." I couldn't breathe for a second. "Why?" The worker's face looked pale. "Nobody knows." I asked him what happened to the bathroom. He said nothing. Then he unlocked a small maintenance door beside it. Behind the door was a narrow corridor. At the end was another door, old, metal, locked. "What's back there?" The worker stared at it. "Nothing anymore." That answer made no sense. I asked him what he meant. He didn't respond. Instead, he told me to leave. I did, but before getting into my car, I looked through the bathroom window. For some reason, I looked toward the left restroom. A man was standing inside, blue jacket, facing the mirror. I froze. The glass reflected his face. It was Daniel. I stepped backward. The bathroom door opened. The man walked out. I looked away for less than a second. When I looked back, nobody was there. I ran to my car. I locked the doors. Then I noticed something on my windshield. a folded piece of paper. I hadn't seen it before. I opened it. There were only 4 words. "You didn't listen." I drove away immediately. I didn't stop until I was nearly an hour down the highway. That's when I received a phone notification. No number, no contact, just an image, a photograph. It showed the rest area bathroom, specifically the left bathroom. The timestamp was 1:47 a.m. The exact time I'd been inside it 2 years after Daniel disappeared. I stared at the photograph. Then I noticed something in the mirror, a blue jacket, standing behind the person taking the photograph, but there was nobody visible in the bathroom when the photograph should have been taken. I deleted the image. I didn't tell my sister. I didn't tell the police. I convinced myself that someone was playing a cruel joke. I stopped thinking about it for almost a year. Then, in October of 2022, I received another photograph. This one was different. It showed my apartment building, taken from across the street. The timestamp was 1:47 a.m. I immediately called the police. They checked outside. Nobody was there. The officer told me there was no evidence anyone had been watching my apartment. I wanted to believe him. Then he asked me something. "Did you ever report a man in a blue jacket?" I stared at him. "What?" He looked at his notes. "We've had several reports over the past few years." "Where?" "Different places." "Doing what?" The officer hesitated, standing outside. My stomach dropped. "Has anyone identified him?" He looked at me. "Everyone describes the same person." I didn't ask for the name. I already knew. I moved 6 months later. I stopped taking that highway, and I never went back to Blue Creek. But there's one thing I still think about. The maintenance worker told me 5 people had seen Daniel after his disappearance. I recently found an archived article from 2023. It said there had been a 6th, a truck driver. He claimed Daniel had approached him inside the rest area. Same blue jacket, same warning. "Don't use the bathroom on the left." The truck driver ignored him. He went inside. 3 hours later, he was found asleep in his truck. His engine was running. The driver's door was open, and his phone contained one photograph, a picture of the bathroom, taken at exactly 1:47 a.m. The photograph showed the truck driver asleep in his driver's seat. Someone was standing outside his window, wearing a blue jacket. The article said the driver couldn't remember taking the photograph, but there was something else in the image. Written across the condensation on the window were 4 words. "You didn't listen." I still have the original screenshot of that article, and sometimes, when I'm driving alone at night, I catch myself looking at rest area signs, not because I need to stop, but because I'm afraid I'll eventually see a blue jacket standing beneath one. And if I ever do, I'm not stopping, not even if the person waves, not even if he knows my name. I didn't realize the rest area was closed until I saw the employee. He was standing behind the reception window, watching me through the glass. The building was supposed to be empty. The highway sign had said it was closed for renovations, but the lights were on, the vending machines were running, and someone inside was answering the phone. What happened over the next 40 minutes is the reason I never stop at unfamiliar rest areas after midnight. This happened in December of 2022. I was 24 and working as an assistant manager for a construction company in Northern California. My job involved traveling between different project sites, a lot of driving, a lot of early mornings, and occasionally very late nights. The incident happened after I finished a job near Redding. I was driving home toward Sacramento. It was just after midnight when the rain started. At first it was light, then it became heavy enough that I could barely see the road. I turned the radio off. The sound of the rain hitting the windshield was loud enough already. My phone showed 9% battery. The fuel gauge was just below half. I wasn't worried about fuel, but I was tired, very tired. Then I saw a highway sign, rest area, 2 miles. I remember feeling relieved. 2 miles later, I took the exit. The access road was completely empty. No cars, no streetlights, only rain and darkness. Then I saw another sign, rest area closed. I almost turned around, but through the rain, I could see lights. The building was illuminated. A few vending machines glowed behind the windows, so I figured the sign was old. Maybe the renovation hadn't started yet. I parked near the building. There were no other vehicles. I grabbed my phone and went inside. The automatic doors opened immediately. The lobby was warm. almost too warm. There was a strong smell of disinfectant. The lights buzzed overhead. Everything looked clean, but strangely, there were no signs of construction, no tools, no plastic sheets, no workers, nothing. I walked toward the vending machines. Then I heard a telephone ring, an old-fashioned desk phone. It was sitting behind the reception window. Ring, ring, ring. I looked around. Nobody was there. The phone stopped, then started again. I approached the window. Hello? No answer. The phone continued ringing. I reached through the opening and picked it up. Hello? A man's voice answered, very quietly. Are you still inside? I frowned. Inside where? Silence. Then, the building. I laughed nervously. Yes. Another pause. Then the man said, leave. The line went dead. I put the receiver down. I remember standing there for several seconds. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Slow. I turned. Nobody. The lobby was empty. I checked the bathrooms. Empty. The vending area. Empty. I looked through the glass doors. My car was still outside. Rain poured across the parking lot. Nothing else moved. I told myself the call was probably a prank. Maybe someone was working security remotely. I decided to use the restroom and leave. The men's bathroom had 4 stalls, 3 sinks, a row of mirrors. I entered the first stall. As I was washing my hands afterward, I noticed something written in the corner of the mirror. Small letters, almost invisible. Don't answer the phone again. I stared at it, then looked behind me. Nothing. I took a photograph. The writing was clearly visible on my screen. I decided that was enough. I walked back toward the entrance, but the automatic doors didn't open. I waved my hand in front of the sensor. Nothing. I tried again. Nothing. I pushed them manually. They didn't move. I checked my phone. 8%. No service. I started feeling genuinely nervous. Then the telephone rang again. I looked toward the reception desk. Ring, 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 ring. I didn't answer. It stopped. A few seconds later, it rang again. I ignored it. Then the voice came through the building's public address system. Please pick up the phone. I froze. The announcement wasn't distorted. It sounded completely normal. A man's voice. Calm, polite. Please pick up the phone. I backed away. Then the lights flickered. Once, twice. The vending machines shut off. The building became completely silent, and from somewhere behind the reception window, I heard footsteps. I moved toward the doors. The footsteps continued, slowly, approaching. Then a figure appeared behind the glass. An employee, gray uniform, name badge, middle-aged man. He stared at me. I stepped closer. Can you open the door? He didn't respond. Sir? He slowly raised one hand and pointed toward the hallway. I looked. At the end of the hallway was a door. I'd never noticed it before. The employee pointed again, then whispered, "That's where they keep them." I stared at him. Keep who? He looked directly at me. Then his expression changed, not fear, recognition. As if he suddenly realized something. You shouldn't be here. I backed away. He disappeared behind the reception window. I walked toward the entrance again. The doors still wouldn't open. Then I heard something from the hallway. A knock. 3 times. Knock, 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 knock. The employee's voice came through the PA system. Don't open it. Another 3 knocks. Louder. I didn't move. Then something slammed against the hallway door. Once, twice, hard enough to shake the walls. I ran to the reception desk, opened the door. No answer. I looked through the window. The employee was gone. The phone was still sitting there. I noticed something underneath it, a stack of old paperwork. I grabbed it. Most of it was maintenance records. Then I saw a report dated 1998, incident after hours. The details were brief. An employee had reported hearing knocking from the closed restroom corridor. Another report mentioned a missing traveler. Another mentioned a vehicle discovered abandoned outside. Then I found something that made me stop. A list, names, dates, every few years. Someone had disappeared from the rest area. The last name was dated 2019. I heard footsteps behind me. I turned. The employee was standing at the end of the lobby, except now he looked different. Older, much older. His face was pale, his uniform was stained, and the name badge on his chest read, Daniel Price. I looked at the paperwork. The same name appeared in the 1998 report. I whispered, "You're Daniel." He didn't answer. He only said, "You answered the phone." I shook my head. "I only answered once." His expression became sad. "You shouldn't have." Behind him, the hallway door opened. Just slightly, darkness filled the gap. Then came a sound, breathing, slow, deep. Something was standing behind the door. Daniel looked at it, then at me. "Run when the lights come back." "What?" "The lights." He pointed upward. "They only stay off for 13 seconds. The lights went out. Everything disappeared." I heard the hallway door slam open, then footsteps, running. Not one person, several, coming toward me. I pressed myself against the reception desk. I heard breathing directly beside my ear. Something whispered, "Stay." I couldn't see anything. Then the lights returned. I ran. The automatic doors opened immediately. I sprinted across the parking lot. Rain hit my face. I reached my car, unlocked it, got inside, and drove. I didn't look back, not once. I drove nearly 40 miles before stopping at a gas station. The clerk called the police after seeing how shaken I was. 2 officers arrived. I told them everything. They drove back with me. The rest area was dark, completely dark. No lights, no employee, no functioning vending machines, and the entrance doors were locked. One officer checked the sign. "Facility closed for renovation." He looked at me. "When did you say you were here?" I told him. He frowned, then showed me something on his phone. The rest area had been closed for almost 3 months. No employees were supposed to be there. No electricity was connected to the building. I couldn't explain what I'd seen. The officers searched the property. They found nothing. No employee, no footprints, no signs of forced entry. But one officer discovered something behind the reception desk, a stack of old maintenance paperwork. He brought it outside. I recognized it immediately. It was the same paperwork I'd seen, except the pages were covered in mold. They looked like they had been sitting there for decades, and the employee's name, Daniel Price, was listed as missing since 1998. The officer asked me if I was sure I'd spoken to him. I said yes. Then he showed me an old photograph attached to the missing person report. Daniel Price, same face, same uniform, same name badge. I couldn't sleep for weeks. Eventually I convinced myself that exhaustion and stress had caused me to hallucinate. That explanation worked. Until about 6 months later, I was cleaning my phone. I found the photograph I'd taken in the bathroom. The message on the mirror was still there. "Don't answer the phone again." But there was something else, something I hadn't noticed before. In the reflection behind me, someone was standing inside the bathroom doorway, a man in a gray uniform, Daniel, and beside him, 3 other figures, all staring directly at the camera. I immediately deleted the photograph. I thought that was the end. Then 2 weeks ago, my phone rang at 1:17 a.m., unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. I didn't say anything, neither did the person on the other end. For several seconds, there was only breathing. Then a man's voice whispered, "Are you still inside?" I hung up. My phone rang again. I turned it off. The next morning, I checked the call history. There was no incoming call, nothing, but there was a voicemail. I played it. At first, silence. Then 3 knocks. Knock, 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 knock. And Daniel's voice, very faint, very tired. "He's looking for you." The recording ended. I haven't answered an unknown number since, and I still don't know what Daniel meant, because sometimes, when I'm driving at night, I see that same blue and white highway sign, rest area, 2 miles. But whenever I check my GPS, there's nothing there. No exit, no building, no road, just forest. And last week, for the first time, I saw something standing beneath the sign, a man in a gray uniform, watching my car pass. He didn't wave, he didn't move, he just stood there, waiting for me to stop.